No offence, but veganism is a privilege that is not accessible to all.
Okay, a quick introduction to my group identities. I don't really care for those, but they might be part of the reason why some of you clicked on this video. So let's get that out of the way, right? So I'm Indian. I've lived in India my entire life, right? And I live in a marginalized section of India. I could go on further, but let's keep it quick and simple. Also, as some of you might know, India is one of Britain's former colonies, right? And in fact, one of the worst victims of British colonialism. So with that out of the way, today I'm responding to a video by the British Broadcasting Corporation. Let's begin.
We are trying to market veganism as an accessible and easy change for people in their diet, but there are serious sociological and economic barriers at the moment that are preventing people from doing this. With regards to education around nutrition.
Education around nutrition, really? Like, how is that an issue that specifically affects veganism? Is that not an issue that just applies across the board and affects people across the board? It is. I mean, come on, most of the world's population isn't vegan, right? And many people, too many people who are not vegan, suffer from a whole array of diseases which are caused by a lack of proper nutrition, right? A lack of education around nutrition, right? Things like obesity, high blood pressure, and so on, right? I'm not saying that all of it is caused by an improper nutrition, an improper diet, because of course it's not, but a lot of it is, right? And this is caused by an improper nutrition, even though they're not vegan, right? So this lack of education around nutrition will affect you or will not affect you regardless of whether or not you're vegan or non-vegan, right? This is not an objection to veganism, and this is not a barrier to veganism, right? Stop pretending that it is. It is dishonest, and that's not a good look.
Education around nutrition, increasing rates of poverty.
Okay, so as I've already told you, I live in a so-called third world country, right? And I can afford to be vegan, right? And I've been vegan for almost 5 years now, right? And if you ask most people in my country if they can afford to be vegan, right? Not if they want to be vegan, but if they can afford to be vegan, which is to say, if you ask them if they can afford to give up meat, fish, eggs, dairy, etc., they will tell you that they can, right? They may not want to, right? But they can afford to. And the reason that they'll tell you that they can, right, is because when you ask them if they can afford to be vegan, they don't think of things like the price of almond milk. They don't think of things like the price of plant-based meat, right? And this is a point that I've made repeatedly, right? Repeatedly, that it is only the ultra-privileged and the hyper-privileged who think that veganism requires privilege, because they start thinking of things like the price of almond milk and the price of plant-based meat, right? They think that a Starbucks latte is a basic need, when it's not, right? When you ask people in my country if they can afford to give up animal products, we start thinking of things like the price of vegetables, the price of rice, the price of pulses, and so on, right? And those things are also very cheap in your country, right? It is time to look beyond your privileged bubble and find out what vegan food is, okay?
And it's really inaccessible diet at the moment for people who have a negative relationship with food.
Be so vague that what you're saying cannot be precisely or accurately refuted, right? That seems to be the strategy here. She says that it's difficult for such people who have a negative relationship with food to go vegan. I'm not even sure what she means by such a vague statement, but I can tell you that it is far more difficult for innocent sentient individuals such as pigs and chickens and goats and so on to be exploited, to be tortured, and finally slaughtered than it is for anyone with a negative relationship with food to go vegan. The level of difficulty at play here, right, is just not comparable. Oh, by the way, if you're enjoying the video, a sub to the channel would be incredible.
At the moment, with increasing rates of austerity that is being seriously suffered by people in the UK, food banks cannot provide the fresh fruit and veg that is needed to sustain a plant-based diet.
Right. And the fault there is on the government, it's on the system, which fails to provide plant-based food. And so anyone who relies on that system, right, for survival, right, has to eat whatever is given to them, right? But there's a solution to this. And the solution is not painting veganism as something only hyper-privileged people do, which is what this video is doing.
Sustain a plant-based diet. As well, with a lot of the mainstream diet companies, the meat, eggs, dairy, animal products are the guilt-free and sin-free foods. And so people...
Look, guilt is a very subjective feeling, right? It is your reaction to an action. It is not the moral reality of the action that you just committed. I could, if I punched someone, right, and I didn't feel guilty about it, that wouldn't mean that what I just did was not immoral, because it was, if the punch was unjustified, right? So the fact that something is guilt-free, right, I think is a moot point, right? It's irrelevant, and I'm not sure why this is being brought up.
And so people are being shamed because it's not easy to give up food in their diet, especially with eating disorders. It's just not an accessible thing for them to do at the moment.
Again, be as vague as you possibly can, right? That seems to be the pattern here. She's not telling us what she's referring to when she says eating disorders. Because of course she's not. Because if she did that, it could be pinned down and debunked. You see, the thing is that there are people with eating disorders, with certain eating disorders, who are vegan, and people with the same eating disorders who are not vegan, right? So it is certainly possible for someone with one of such conditions to be vegan in the same sense that I am vegan, right? But what's crucial here, right, is the definition of veganism. Veganism is a philosophy which seeks to exclude, as far as is possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to non-human animals for, amongst other things, food, right? So if there is a person who genuinely needs to consume certain animal-derived products in order to survive, right, that person can still be vegan for as long as they don't do it unnecessarily.
So instead of, shaming these people, we need to confront the barriers that are stopping them from adopting a vegan diet.
I agree. We as a society need to get rid of these social barriers so that we may reduce and minimize our consumption of products that cause unnecessary animal suffering, right? And the way to do that, right, is by doing a few things. Number one, by going vegan if you can, right? And you certainly seem to be the kind of person who can go vegan, right? And that makes it ever so slightly easier for every next person to follow in their footsteps. Number two, not painting veganism as something only privileged people do, right? That would not be so much of a problem if that were just something that was true, but clearly it's not, right? So don't do that. And the third way to help, right, is by helping people go vegan, right? By helping them make the switch, by helping them stay vegan, right? By helping people realize the extent of the unnecessary animal suffering that we cause for something as trivial as temporary taste pleasure, by making people aware of speciesism, right, which is the arbitrary discrimination on the basis of species, right? A video on that would be far more helpful, right, immensely more helpful than this video which the BBC Three published. Okay, that's it for this video. I've been Aditya Prakash, or Soytheist. Thank you kindly for the view, and an extra special thank you to my patrons on Patreon, who, by the way, voted for the topic of this video. If you'd like to do that too, be sure to check that out. There are other benefits as well, starting from just $1 a month. So be sure to check that out. It's the first link in the description. You can also follow me on social media here, right? Especially on Instagram, where I share my more candid thoughts. So be sure to check that out. Links will be in the description. If you aren't subscribed to the channel, be sure to subscribe to the channel. It really helps it out. and let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. Let's have a discussion there, right? I'll be in there for a while after uploading this.